Well, I've come along to speak to the Minister now about the dispute with the buses today. Should we start with what was said on my interview with one of the bus drivers about them being at work this morning, and then they were told not to go out from about, I think, 10 something, and they sat around there, and then they were sort of told to get off the premises before the strike started?
Well, it was made quite clear to us from the union that they were going to abandon the buses all over the island. And I heard on the radio this morning that Eric Holmes was saying that if any of the passengers were on board and they realised that their journey would end after 1 o'clock, then they would get them as close as they could do before they would stop the buses.
Well, he said that to us the other day, but he said he wasn't saying going to stop on roundabouts or just in the middle of the road. I mean, that was a sort of inference that was given through your area today, wasn't it?
No, it was indications that we'd had from the union that they would stop the buses. They may pull them over to the side and not stop them at roundabouts, but we have a duty of care that we do not want to have passengers having to walk the last bit. There's also a duty to the driving public that we do not want our buses left, and of course they wouldn't be secure at that time. So we had to do whatever we could to make sure that people were aware that they would get to their destination if they got on a bus.
But this guy was saying, I mean, in what he said, his 10:30 or 9:25 would have been back way before the actual 1 o'clock cut-off, and he could have done his shift, but your management stopped him.
No, all of shifts, we were making sure that the buses were back at their proper depot. One of the other problems that we would have is that if buses were left out in the wrong position, is trying to get them back into position to start services again.
So where do we go from here? I mean, first of all, how effective was it today? I mean, I've seen a few buses on the way to see you today, and some were certainly leaving. Were you happy with what you got out?
We've run most of the services that we were hoping to do, and I think the travelling public were aware that there was action, and they took appropriate measures to make sure they could get into work.
But yet again, you got the steam and you got the electric railway. Yes. You've got all those people getting off and on down at Castletown on your very expensive temporary platform. This is going to go on, isn't it?
It's a necessity. That platform is a necessity. It is a safety issue. We can actually deal with a large number of pupils going to school in one direction. It's not a case of multiple crossing points, and you could get children crossing in different directions. It's in a controlled manner, and it was a safety issue that through the Department of Education, ourselves, Department of Infrastructure, Highways and the Isle of Man Constabulary that was put in place.
But you came in for some flack in Tynwald saying it was unnecessary from the Castletown MHK, wasn't it, I believe?
Yes, I can't understand where he's coming from in that, because some of these people will be his constituents, and we are trying to get them to school in the safest way possible. And sometimes you do have to spend some money to make sure that people get to their place education safely.
So, have you got the support of Comin? I mean, you've been in there this morning, haven't you? You've had a big...
Yes, we've been in council this morning. They've got full support of Council of Ministers, and we have to make these savings. That is what we have to do. I do not know what part of there is no more money.
But we could be sitting here next week, the week after. I mean, the guy interviewed earlier was saying he thought it could go until TT. I mean, that's thinking ahead a bit. But when it's got to end somehow.
Yes, and we have to make those savings. There is no other way around it. The Isle of Man has had a reduction in its income, and we have to react to it. This is actually securing their jobs. If we do not make this saving, it means that we have to lose drivers, and it also means a reduction of services. We've already lost over £300,000 worth of management and administrative roles in the department. We have looked across the whole of the department to try and make savings.
I mean, we've talked about binding arbitration, and then there's this, you could have pendulum arbitration, which is literally the guy must decide either you're right or they're right, so you're very definite in your things. Have you got any manoeuvrability at all on your side now?
There is no arbitration. We have to make the saving. How can going to arbitration dictate Tynwald policy? Tynwald has decided what our budget is.
What's next? More talks?
We are always willing to talk, but we have to make the savings. The drivers have been informed. This is, how the savings are made up we can work around, but we have to make these savings.
I mean, we get the opinion here, sort of opinion from people that really you are now so entrenched, they have to give in. I mean, or come to some sort of agreement with you, but you aren't going to budge. Is that how it is?
Council ministers is quite firm. We have to make that saving. That £300,000 saving has to be done.